Hello everyone and welcome to the DnDebrief from the RPGeeks. This, if you don't know what we're doing here, is a sort of science chat show. Every other week we have a Dungeons & Dragons adventure in space. And following that, on the DnDebrief, we chat about some of the science that came up. My name is Sharmini, I use she, her pronouns, and I play a very cool sorcerer on the show, Ali.
Hi. Yes, I'm the DM. Just terrified by the bear, or at least knowing that the bear is behind the GIF.
What bear?
What bear?
Yes, you're right.
The tension's unbearable because there is no bear.
It is. It is. I can't believe I messed that up so soon. Yeah,
podcast listeners are going to be so confused right now. There is a bear behind Ali in his office.
There might be a bear.
I'm the DM. I also do science videos and podcasts and things like that, is what I meant to say at the start. Simon.
That's good. That's good.
Hello, I'm Simon. I am playing the character Uriel, who uses... sorry, I got my life and Uriel's life so crossed over them. I'm Simon, I use he, him pronouns, and my character doesn't mostly do that. They are a dwarf monk, and yeah, that's that. I'm getting very confused right now because I've had a lot on my mind. I'm trying to deal with the stream, which is a very different setup to what we've normally done before.
So yeah, you may notice we are one fewer than usual this week.
My name's Emily. I like Brendan Fraser.
Do you?
Who's this man behind me?
Oh shit! It's on a bear!
Oh my god!
The real Emily Bates will maybe be making a late appearance later on, but she's been doing some very important science work today, which we hope has gone very well.
Can we say what she's doing roughly?
We don't know. She just keeps saying
she's
on a
so
boat.
mysterious.
It's very mysterious. I know. I'm very excited about.
She's doing the Life Aquatic with Emily Bates. That is my headcanon for what is going on today.
I'm gonna wait and see. Like eventually, presumably, it'll appear on Twitter, and we'll all know what Emily Bates has been doing today on a boat.
Holy shit! Bear, she's on water.
It's a polar bear.
No, it's a tardigrade. It's a water bear.
Oh!
No! The tardigrades, they're back!
We're big fans. We are big fans of tardigrades on this show.
Ali looks so small. He looks like a borrower.
Ali is.
I'm in the Zoom background.
You are. Well done, Ali.
Okay, I think what we've established is that Emily was the glue that held our sanity together, and as soon as a single thread has been pulled from the tapestry of RPGeeks.
I have control of this situation. Right, enough of this. I'm gonna make sure everyone knows what happened on the last Dungeons & Dragons and Science Adventure episode, so that we have some context for our chat today, if I can remember. Okay, just put your fingers in your ears for like 10 seconds if you don't want spoilers for last episode. Not you. There was like a zombie, and then like the zombie came to get us, and then there was like a fight, and then Affinity was like fog cloud, and then Tenebris was like go away, and then like Uriel was like kapow.
And I punched him in the dick so hard he fell over.
Oh no, that's yeah. You punched him into unconsciousness, and then there was some just like normal guards there who were just like. They didn't seem to mind.
They were so nonplussed. They were just like, yeah, happens all the time, you know.
And then the gang went to a motel and met some fascinating life, insect and otherwise, and it was lovely, and that was my favourite part. But I won't go into too much detail because you should catch up on the show,
which you can do on our podcast or on our YouTube channel.
Yes, and we're RPGeeks D&D everywhere, so search us. And if you can't find anything, go to
search harder,
and they'll have links.
If a new episode hasn't come out by the time you listen to this, wait longer.
This one will also be on YouTube in a couple of days, so you can catch up on this. You might be doing that now. This might be in the future. Right now,
if someone who is not watching this live is watching it, definitionally it is always going to be in the future.
Yeah.
It's like saying, "Oh, this is a picture of me when I was younger." Like every picture of you is a picture of you when you're younger.
Unless it was you in the future.
Well, but how would you take the picture?
Well, you travelled back in time and gave yourself
I got my mind blown and then instantly reintegrated by Sharmini there. That was disorientating.
Obviously. So there was a few ideas that we had from last episode for the D&D brief. What kind of science could we kind of pull apart and discuss? The idea being that everything that happens in the adventure, even though we're using D&D 5e mechanics, everything has some sort of scientific explanation, and it's sort of somehow based on our modern science, but maybe sort of speculating how that could move into the future. And Simon, you had a particular interest this week.
Yeah, so we'll see how we go with this. Normally in the D&D brief, we do 2 topics. Emily was going away and researching dick punching, and
whether or not it could make you unconscious, because that's a crucial part of what happens.
Yes,
plot, yeah.
I wanted to focus in on her druid power. So, what was the power that she cast? Because of the group of us, I'm a relative newcomer to D&D. So, if somebody wants to pick up that ball, what was the power she cast?
I'm pretty sure it would have been like a first level fog cloud. I can find. I've tried to search and I've searched fig food. I'm trying to like search up Fog Cloud 5e so that I can.
Quite druidic.
Oh, D&D, but you're a chef.
There's a 20-foot radius sphere of fog centered on a point within range. It spreads around corners. It makes the area heavily obscured, but it can be dispersed by a wind, a moderate or fast wind.
So that was what she did, and in context, she did it to obscure this zombie fella. So they couldn't see where we were, and we could make an escape.
There's a lot of zombie being thrown around here. I just want to make it clear that was never actually stated. I mean, there's no indication that that thing was a zombie.
It's because we had a drink
other than a normal
that was named after zombies, and we were all very suspicious about the drink making people into zombies because it was called Zombie Porter. Like, I think that's a reasonable link to make. So.
But one of the cardinal rules of a zombie film is you never say the word zombie.
No, so it can't be a zombie. That's oh wow.
It's like in any Romero film, I think they never say the word zombie. I want to say.
Yeah. Not zombie.
That feels like a science check waiting to happen.
Do they say the word zombie in films?
In Romero films,
it's not the most sciencey of our science checks that we do.
I wanted an excuse to go away and watch 9 hours of zombie films.
Is there? I mean, this question has been asked so many times, I'm sure, but do zombies exist? Can they exist?
I mean, have you seen like a 9 a.m. commuter train? Like, I'm pretty sure zombies exist.
Parasites that take over your brain. Just want to say.
Yep.
Cordyceps. Oh, can we just do a whole thing on cordyceps?
It's prion disease, one of these things. There's like a pathway for explaining it.
I think that makes you crazy.
Grim. That's really.
That makes that's just sort of horror. Makes you horrible crazy.
Yeah.
But and that's the one you get if I eat a human.
You're right about the. It is a nice.
Human.
Yes, you can. That is the one you're thinking of, and it does. It has a nice pathway for infection, I suppose. Yeah.
But then, like,
anyway,
so we're getting sidetracked.
No. What we got? Wait, no, hang on. Follow the track. Maybe it leads somewhere.
Does it lead to fog?
To the
cloud?
side?
Yeah. How does this lead to fog? I haven't the foggiest.
Be talking about. Hey!
We got to get you a sound effect, like the klaxon for the.
The only thing I have is air horns.
Have you got multiple kinds?
I mean, I can probably put, like, I don't know, is a badumch. I feel like it needs to be a groan sound effect more than anything else. Like if it's a dad joke.
Down. I mean, I'm like,
we'll be the judge of that, Simon.
Did Romero invent the word zombie? Twitch chat is asking. I find etymology
because zombie is an old it's not voodoo. It's either voodoo or Haitian or something, or like ZOMBI is an old word for a particular kind of something religious.
It was first recorded in 1819 in the history of Brazil by the poet Robert Southey in the form ZOMBI. Actually referring to an Afro-Brazilian rebel leader and the etymology of his name in a particular language. And the OED says the word originally comes from Central Africa, specifically the Congo, and it is related to Nzambi, meaning God, and Zumbi, meaning fetish.
Wow.
Did not see that last part coming.
No, that was a hockey stick sentence.
Gosh.
Yes. Yeah, the hockey stick sentence. Wow, we should definitely look into this.
I mean, I just love etymology. This is one of these fields that I find absolutely fascinating because, like, it's when you understand the roots of words, you kind of it's almost like an extra level of appreciation. It's like understanding how it's one thing to use a house and its plumbing. It's another thing to understand how the house was plumbed and where the pipes come from. Like you can wash your hands and be like, oh, I really know where this water came from. Isn't that nice?
But also, sometimes you'll be looking into the etymology of your word and it'll reveal some really horrific history as to how that word got the way it was. Like your plumbing was originally used to enslave thousands or something, right?
Well, plumbing originally comes from plumbus for lead, and because the Romans made their plumbing out of lead, and they actually used it so widely that it gave Romans really widespread lead poisoning because all their drinking water was just going through it. And apparently they just never thought that, maybe the pipes were the problem. So,
but you wouldn't, would you? What if our pipes are the problem?
Yeah. What? Oh God. Anyway.
Can you get? Well, there are certain conditions that cause like copper to build up.
Hey, separate sort of thing, right? Just as a sort of analogy to the pipes Roman thing. So actually, like at the moment, there's huge amounts of research going into basically like the most common chemicals that we breathe in, things like pesticides and air pollution from cars, right? So the exact same thing is sort of happening to us. We are poisoning ourselves with all the stuff that we release into the atmosphere, and it's really, really bad for us, but we're just like, yeah, probably fine.
And also it's ubiquitous, so there's like really hard to get a control group to compare it against to actually know.
Like the Romans with their freaking pipes.
Like the Romans.
Also, before we move on, because we probably should move on.
You mean
Bates is going to turn up, and we still won't have gotten to the start.
The word skull in English, this is one of the cooler etymologies, is originally from from a Viking root. Originally, in Anglo-Saxon, the word that we used to refer to what we now call a skull was brain pan, like a pan that holds your brain. Which I just think is really cool.
That's actually a medical term as well, isn't it? Your brain pan. I thought it's at the bottom of the skull or something. I don't really know.
I'm looking at the etymology of brain right now, and it appears to come from Proto-Germanic, so it's actually quite old. It's like 2,500 odd years old.
Jesus.
Some words are seriously old, like star is almost unchanged from Proto-Indo-European, and it originally was the verb to burn associated with an object. It's like a burner, if you like. A star was just a thing that burns.
That's so awesome. You were literally like before, because obviously all our kind of like our sort of Judeo-Christian shizzle is like stars are associated with light, aren't they? It's light that we follow. Whereas back then they're like, no, it's about burning stuff. And we've kind of come all the way back round.
Well, I guess if you're in a landscape and it's totally dark apart from a fire, that would look like a star in a dark sky, right? Like it's a similar thing. It's a point of light against darkness. I don't know. I find that it connects me somehow to people that lived thousands and thousands of years ago by the language we use, which I just think is really cool.
Is there any kind of evidence that they thought that those things up there were on fire?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, in the documentary The Lion King, one of the characters does think that, but they are laughed out of town. Or laughed out of the savannah. I mean,
balls of burning gas. Always got. Everything's gas when you're a warthog.
I mean, certainly the ancient Greek cosmology was that there were concentric spheres, and that the stars were like painted on the spheres, right?
That makes sense.
Were they pierced into the outer layer? I just made that up.
I don't know, actually. I don't know enough about their cosmology to answer that. I just know
you wrote a whole book called Firmament.
Yeah, but okay, fun fact.
I didn't write that.
So no, yeah, I ghostwrote it. So meteorology was specifically defined as being below the stars. Like you had geology of the Earth, meteorology, which was stuff that fell from above. It's kind of literal meaning of meteorology, and then you had astrology. That was all the stuff above it. So there was like a threefold division. So I never had to worry about in the book all of the stuff that took place above, apart from the sun. But like that's kind of a special exception.
Did you worry about clouds?
Yes. Oh, there it is. He's a professional.
Oh, that was nice. Oh, I liked that. Oh.
So basically, yeah. So it was a fog cloud, small. Fog cloud, which is interesting in itself because fog and cloud are exactly the same phenomenon. They're just we give them two different names
as opposed to mist. Wait, what? Tell me again. What's the difference between fog and mist? Because I tried to look it up and it seemed actually a lot vaguer than I'd always.
I think it is I think fog is basically just dense mist.
Yeah. Because I'd always heard like, oh, one comes up and down, and one's this and one's that, and it's like, no, people just call them different things, and it's
because they're all basically the same phenomenon. It's water vapor condensing into droplets, and if it's high up, it's a cloud. If it's low down, it's fog, basically.
And what conditions? Well, I was going to ask what conditions you need to make water vapor, water. Gas turn into little droplets.
Hang on, Ali, I got the impression from your tone then that you're going to come up with some absolute gold right now.
Yeah,
I can't.
No.
Science questions.
No.
I'm gold.
That was a great science question, Shamini, but I get the impression Ali's going to do something that's going to throw this completely off the rails, and so I'm here for it.
No, I wasn't. I was going to
tie a giant rope to it. So
I was going to just ask. I was just going to say the same thing that Shamini was saying. Which is
that's a great question, Ali. So
that's fair. No, that's fair.
So how do you make a cloud? Great question, Ali. So I mean, the thing to remember about clouds is that they are liquid water. Sorry. Before I actually go into this any further, Dan V in Twitch chat has an explanation between fog and mist. Fog, you can see less than a kilometer. Mist, you can see more than a kilometer. Apparently.
Surely not. That sounds way too prescriptive.
I reckon there's probably multiple definitions, but that sounds like is that like a UK Met Office definition, Dan V?
Could be a nautical one, couldn't it?
Possibly.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's see what the nautical people have to say about this. The sailors.
Let's go and check out the nautical step.
Just go and ask the nautical people.
Emily! So clouds and fog and mist are all the same thing. They are all just water droplets that are suspended in the air.
It is the Met Office! The amazing Danby!
There's an important distinction there between water droplets and water vapor. So I have to admit, I still find this quite confusing.
Yeah, I tried to look it up, and I didn't believe your explanation.
In my research, I was a stratospheric dynamicist, so I was looking at the layer above our main, the level that we live in the atmosphere. And one of the defining characteristics about the stratosphere is that there is pretty much no water vapor in it whatsoever. Like, you can almost completely ignore moisture when you're talking about the stratosphere.
How high up is that? What's stratosphere?
So that's from approximately, because it depends on latitude, approximately 10 kilometers above the surface to about 50 kilometers above the surface. So it's roughly 30% of the mass of the atmosphere, with most of the 70% being below in the troposphere, and about 1% is above the stratosphere. But that's then divided in different levels.
Okay.
I watched an awesome video by you, Simon.
No, that wouldn't have been me.
A poster, right? Yep. But above that level, am I right in thinking that in the stratosphere there are some little sort of wispy, cloudy things, but no one really knows anything about them?
Yeah, so that's in the mesosphere. That's the next level above. They're noctilucent clouds, which are like super thin, super wispy, but because they're super high up, they're often illuminated after the sun has gone below the horizon at the surface. So in twilight, they're like backlit. So they look really cool.
Oh, they're those ones.
Yeah. They almost look like an oil slick in the sky. They're really. I've only very rarely seen them, but they're very pretty.
What do we Google to see the pictures of the pretty clouds?
Noctilucent clouds.
Hence the reason they're called noctilucent, because you see them when it's sort of nighty, night lighty.
Night lighty, yes.
Wow, the science is really flowing on this one.
So yeah, basically, like, I'm not used to dealing with water vapor, so I had to look the stuff up again, even though I did cover it in my degrees. And so the difference between water vapor and water being suspended as a liquid is water vapor is water in gaseous form that is, for the most part, when we talk about it in the atmosphere, we're talking about it being less than the boiling point. So there's the difference between I think the key difference here is actually the difference between boiling and evaporation. So boiling is when you take water to 100 degrees at surface level, sea level pressure, and you take it to 100 degrees and it converts thermodynamically in a bulk process from liquid to gas. Whereas...
And then that's called...
That's
gas.
Boiling. And that is still technically called water vapor, but you'd normally call it steam if it's over 100 degrees. Okay. So... Basically, if there is a process that will take place at less than at the boiling point, which is evaporation, which is basically just the selective escape of certain water molecules from a surface where like there is water and air above it, or any kind of interface.
Is that because the difference in like some molecules will randomly have more energy and they will have enough energy to sort of
because there's the distribution. They will the energetic molecules leave, and it also results in a cooling effect because you're lowering the average kinetic energy of the remaining molecules. So on average,
so what do those little escaped water molecules form?
So they form a tenuous gas. So they
Why is it tenuous?
Well, because there's just not very many of them. Like initially, there's not very many, but you can get. So this is where you start talking about absolute humidity. So you talk about how much water is actually suspended in the air. That can be up to about like 25, 30 grams of water for every cubic meter just suspended in the air. So it's actually quite a lot if the water is, and that's if the air is saturated. So the air becomes saturated, which is a term that basically means if you add any more water vapor to it, it will condense out. The air can't suspend any more water in it.
That's what we define
so here
as
I am.
100% humidity.
Yeah, which is relative humidity, because there's absolute humidity, which is the total amount of water, and then there's the relative humidity, which is how much, like what percentage of a way towards saturation are we?
So I'm in the jungle. It's really, really hot. It's approaching 100% humidity. And so when I sweat, does that mean that?
Yeah. So this is one of the reasons why high humidity is really unpleasant, because the ability for your body to sweat depends on there being. It's the difference in humidity between your skin, basically, like the water on your skin, and the water that's suspended in the air. So if the air around you is basically saturated, then you will sweat, but it won't evaporate and take heat away with it even. So you won't cool down. You'll just keep sweating and sweating. And
it will all pool on your skin and you'll just be dripping in sweat.
Yeah. But of course, if you get beyond the saturation point, then you start getting water condensing into liquid form. And the key thing to remember about what's called the dew point, which is the point at which the water becomes saturated in a given parcel of air, is that it's pressure and temperature dependent. So if you change the pressure, if you change the temperature, you can take a volume of air that is saturated and push it past the dew point, at which point water will condense out.
Like breathing out hot air into a cold day.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you increase the pressure, do you allow more water to be stored in that air before it saturates?
Yes, and likewise, so what you would often see is moisture-laden air that's evaporating off from the surface, say at the tropics, will ascend because it's less dense, and so eventually it will hit an altitude where the pressure is low enough or the temperature is low enough that it will start condensing the water vapor that was previously just a gas into the liquid water droplets, and that's when you form a cloud.
Does the if you've got air filled with a load of water molecules bouncing around, does the reason that as you get lower pressure it's going to start to condense out is because of like the kinetic energy of the molecules, like it's got less to bounce around against?
It's something like that.
Together.
This is when you run into discussion of stuff like the Gibbs free energy, and I haven't covered this in my degree for so long. Yeah, that's when this is when you actually get to like really kind of interesting thermodynamic relationships between variables that you just don't normally see, like the enthalpy or the Gibbs energy or whatever. But yes, it's something to do, I think, with the distribution of kinetic energy, basically.
So here I am in my D&D world, right, firing a sort of pellet at this zombie, not zombie. And so I always assumed that it would have to be a sort of steam or smoke or something. But you're saying that actually a way of getting that cloud to instantaneously appear might be to do a low pressure spike in the area, which massively decreases the pressure, and then all of the water just pushes out into...
So there's two ways of doing it. I think that's one way of doing it. I actually think the easier way of doing it that would also more closely describe the spell, because if you did create a low pressure, things would be sucked into that area. You create a partial vacuum almost, and everything would feel a tug towards that area. So what I would propose is that you actually have a canister or something that you throw, and then that explodes and distributes really cold, tiny particles. So you chill the air over a large area, reduce the temperature of the air, and then cause all the water vapor to condense. So,
but that's not the same as seeding, like cloud seeding. Or is
Yeah,
it?
that's what I thought you were going to...
So cloud seeding is something a little bit different. Cloud seeding is where you have an existing cloud and you want that cloud to rain out. You start the process of precipitation falling from that cloud. Because it's quite possible for water in liquid form to be suspended as droplets and not precipitate. It requires certain conditions and certain internal processes to happen that cause this kind of a self-sustaining kind of phenomenon, self-sustaining reaction that causes the water to fall out in heavy droplets. And so what cloud seeding is you put something like silver iodide in the inputs to the cloud, like the updraft into it, that then acts as a way of like typically it's nucleation centers. So you provide something that the water vapor can condense onto and then fall out. Oh no.
It is happening.
It's happening.
Wait, it's happening. I'm here. Don't leave me.
Small internet issues causing Ali to
No, there
panic
aren't.
slightly.
Don't say it.
Don't worry, Ali. I've got you covered. There we go.
Are you just going to dump me out the chat?
There we go.
Placing you with a gif of Brendan Fraser chasing a horse.
There can only be one.
Well, I'm back now.
No. Sometimes it's like I can still hear him. So, what was I going on about?
You're going to open your window in the morning and it's just going to be that bear's face outside your bedroom.
Yeah. Oh, Bates is in the chat. Bates, don't look behind you. Emily, don't look behind you. Whatever you do.
Bates has been listening in, I think.
So yeah, basically, cloud seeding is where you change the inputs into the cloud. You kick off that internal process of stuff starting to fall out of it, but you don't create the cloud yourself. Because normally, what you do with cloud seeding is you take an existing cloud.
Wait. Sorry. Wait. Like, so, hang on, because I don't want to be the person who starts talking about contrails and chemtrails and stuff, but it's happening, and so I'm going to roll with it. But the contrail thing, there's no cloud before, there's cloud after. Riddle me that, Mr. Science.
So
is that the same thing?
Yeah, so plane contrails are flying in... Typically, this will be like in the upper troposphere rather than the stratosphere, because if they're in the stratosphere, there's not much moisture to begin with. But if you're in the troposphere, you're in an environment where there is water vapor present, but it's not at the dew point, so it's not forming a cloud. And what happens is when a jet flies through, the exhaust from the engines is hot, so you think that it would actually make it able to sustain more water vapor, because that's one of the relationships. The warmer the air is, the more moisture it can hold, which is why climate change is a bit of a problem, because the warmer the air gets, the more moisture it can hold overall. Water is a greenhouse gas, and it's a positive feedback. But there are negative ones to counter it. It's fine. Well, it's not fine. It's very much not fine. Anyway, going back to the contrails. So the exhaust from the plane also has partially burned jet fuel in it, which can melt steel beams. Just to head off that question at the pass, Ali. And the partially burned jet fuel acts as nucleation points, that the water vapor, there's enough water vapor present to nucleate and create those little liquid droplets that will form a cloud.
So does that mean if I'm getting rained on from a plane, then I am...
Jet fuel in the rain.
I'm getting jet fueled.
So it won't be... I don't think those clouds precipitate. I think because they're... Well, even if they did, the water that fell from them as raindrops would pass through so much atmosphere that they would evaporate on the way to the ground. I would be... And also, actually, if they're that high up, they would probably be ice crystals anyway. Because they would be at the upper part of the troposphere where it's much, much colder. So you would cause the water vapor to precipitate... nucleate. But then because it's so cold, it wouldn't be liquid water, it would be solid water. And so you'd get ice condensation.
Can I ask, so there's sort of two things that are sort of like seeding or nucleation. So first off, if you introduce a sort of nucleation point in like humid air, little droplets of water or maybe ice crystals can form around it, which could be visible as a cloud.
And that's at any level. So you could be on the ground and that could happen.
Yeah, but I think in order to create the... I think if you're near to the ground, you'd have to be very near the dew point to begin with. I think one of the reasons that it works in the upper atmosphere is because the pressure is lower. You're probably relatively close to that dew point anyway.
And is the other thing you were saying that if you've got a pre-existing cloud and you introduce like nucleation points, that you can make it rain?
Yes, which is how it's normally. But and the way that normally works is you make it rain in order to get rid of the rain before a big event. Like, I'm pretty sure before the 2008 Olympics, they cloud seeded around Beijing so that there wouldn't be rain on the day. And it's you can pay people to do it for your wedding. Like there are literally services where you can get people to, oh yeah, we'll send a plane up, or we'll send a rocket or a balloon or something up and seed the clouds around the area.
I'm sorry, I've been super slow. So Shams, what you were saying was that basically there's two jobs for seeding. One is to make cloud, one is to make cloud rain, but when
so people talk about seeding, they mean the second one usually.
Yeah.
But it's so actually you have a huge amount of control if you can just seed in the correct way, if you'll excuse.
Yes, but it's difficult to predict what's going to happen because it's a fluid process.
I'm very fucking it. Sorry.
I mean, but the thing is, when you're talking about weather manipulation, I think it's really important to kind of couch a lot of statements in this is the theory, but the reality often doesn't bear out with the theory because it's so complicated.
If I have a party and I send my mates up with their plane, does it work? Is that good?
It can work, but then you also have to consider the potential knock-on effects of if you cause precipitation to fall in like the local area. That's going to influence all of the the weather system that you are in, and you could potentially entrain more water vapor to fill in the gap, and so you might actually end up with more rain in the future.
But that's after my party. So.
Yeah, but if you want to take that attitude. But the thing is, this has been weaponized. There was a thing called Project Popeye in the Vietnam War, where the Americans tried to use this as a weapon, which is one of the wilder bits of military history.
By making it rain?
So the problem with fighting in Vietnam was it's a guerrilla campaign. They weren't fighting guerrillas, chat. They were fighting guerrilla fighters, which comes from the Spanish meaning little war. It should be guerrilla. Anyway, etymology episode, everyone.
So
the thing with the guerrilla conflict is that they could just melt into the jungle and they were being resupplied through these secret pathways that were too small to be seen. You couldn't bomb them. They were trying to fight an unconventional enemy, basically. So what they tried to do was seed clouds to extend the monsoon season over Vietnam that would create so much rain that it would wash away the what was called the Ho Chi Minh Trail, so the thing that was actually resupplying them from like Laos and Cambodia. So there'd be just so much rain that they wouldn't be able to be resupplied, which I don't think really worked.
No, how do you know if it had worked or not, though? Because
they lost the war quite spectacularly.
In that sense, it really didn't work, I suppose. But
and also it's illegal now. They actually I had to look this up. The UN Convention on the Prohibition of Military or any other hostile use of environmental modification techniques, which bans weather modification for warfare in 1977. So
you can do it for a wedding, but not for a war. That doesn't seem right. It somehow worries me that you could just manipulate the entire weather of an area.
Yeah, but I mean, I think, but this is like the US flying like I don't know what it would have, probably super fortresses or something, over like a huge part of a country and just being like, yeah, clouds, everyone, clouds, like, and it's like just such a different scale compared to potentially doing it for a party. But the other thing was the even more crazy one that they tried to do in peacetime was in the. I think it was the 70s. I didn't write down a date for this, which was new to me, called Project Storm Fury, which is his actual name.
I like it.
Not a Games Workshop title, US government project. And basically what they tried to do was to make hurricanes weaker by throwing in cloud seeding techniques and trying to remove as much water that was held in the storm as possible. And then also, by latent heat fluxes and, caused by precipitation happening, you would raise the pressure in the center of the storm and make it less destructive, make it less intense.
That's good. Wait, did that work? That's great.
No, it didn't work.
Since we're talking about, do you know anything about the current ideas about releasing all shiny bits into the atmosphere to reflect the sun.
Oh, Ali. Why would you come to me on the day we talk about weddings? Yes, that's the thing we can talk about if you want, but it's a fucking Pandora's box of consequences, let me tell you.
Ooh, that sounds pretty good. I mean, can you just tell me something? Give me something.
Right. So what Ali's talking about is a process called solar radiation management. And this basically
makes it sound way more evil. I mean,
it really does. So you know the episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns just blots out the sun? It's basically that. And the idea is that if you have a planet that is warming because you have too much energy, well, the same amount of energy coming in from the sun and less energy being radiated out into space by the Earth.
It's terraforming.
You limit the amount of energy.
Terraforming.
Yeah. But you limit the amount of energy that comes in from the sun
by putting mirrors in space. So
you could put mirrors in space. You could like one proposal is you paint all of the rooftops white, which is like
that's important for reducing urban heat as well.
Yeah, but on a global climate perspective, it's like trying to stop a runaway train by pissing on it. Like the amount of force applied is
pissing on it in the correct direction, pissing on the side. Like,
yeah.
What are you doing?
Now you're just going to get hit by a wet runaway train. So it's a terrible. That's a great metaphor because it's a terrible idea. The most common approach the most common idea that's suggested is something called stratosphere aerosol injection, which is basically where you put stuff up in the stratosphere, and instead of being large mirrors, you put particles like sulfur dioxide or titanium oxide, which is what makes the M's on M&M's white. It's a food additive that's really white. But
you used lead.
No, we're not Roman.
No, Roman M&Ms.
They only sell those in the Vatican, that technique, because they're still Roman Catholics.
Important. The old ways are the best ways.
And basically, yeah, you put a whole bunch of shit up in the stratosphere that is reflective and you reduce the amount of energy that comes in. In principle, great idea. But
great, I love it. Let's do it.
From a biodiversity... Yes, it's the albedo effect, Emily! He's in chat shouting at me.
Yeah.
Yes, also to answer another question from Twitch chat, that is specifically Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 1 that the solar blotting out is in. So the reason it's a terrible idea is, first of all, there's not one but two kinds of sunlight. There is direct sunlight and diffuse sunlight.
I see where this is going.
And you're increasing the amount of diffuse sunlight but decreasing the amount of direct sunlight by putting a whole load of stuff up in the stratosphere. That's a problem because different species of plants use those different types of sunlight to different extents in their photosynthesis because they can penetrate different parts of leaves.
What?
So you can't be getting rid of that much of it that it's going to hurt the plants, can it?
Well, the problem is if
you're going to favour a certain kind of plant, right? Like you'll lose some, but others will be like, "Yeah, I love it."
Japanese knotweed is going to be like, "Yes."
But consider the fact that you're destabilizing.
Like, yes.
If you destabilize the biodiversity of, let's say, for example, the Amazon in the news at the moment. If you change how much photosynthesis takes place in the Amazon, and maybe some species start thriving and some species start to perish, you fundamentally change the amount of moisture that is being put up into the atmosphere through transpiration. And that can potentially change precipitation patterns across Africa, across North America.
Okay. So without going down the biodiversity route, which I would like to go down at some stage, back to the seeding thing. If you bung a load of titanium oxide up in the stratosphere, then are you going to see clouds? Or is it that you said the stratosphere doesn't have any moisture in it anyway, so you probably wouldn't?
Yeah. So one of the reasons you put them in the stratosphere is because there's no water vapor or barely any. In energetic cloud tops, you do get some moisture that gets put up. So you wouldn't.
Is that the cumulonimbus, like the top of the big?
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite facts about the atmosphere. Cumulonimbus clouds have an anvil top because the top represents the boundary between the troposphere and the stratosphere. Cool. Because the thing about the stratosphere is you can't propagate vertically. Like vertical motion is almost completely shut down. So when all this water vapor, this air with water vapor comes shooting up from the troposphere, it finds this layer like a force field that it just can't penetrate. So it balloons out to the sides, carrying cloud with it. So when you look at the top...
is it so like...
Yeah, so the reason it's so flat on top is because that's the boundary of the troposphere.
But how is the boundary so like clearly delineated?
Distinct, yeah.
Because the defining characteristic of the stratosphere relative to the troposphere is that it gets warmer with altitude. So in the troposphere, the higher you go, the colder it gets. Whereas in the stratosphere, you actually stay the same temperature for a bit, and then you get warmer as you get higher and higher.
This is to do with the pressure.
Well, the pressure is related to it, but basically, without going into the full derivation, what that means is that if you take an air parcel and in the stratosphere and you try to move it above you, no matter what you do, it's always going to end up being more dense than its surroundings, which means that it will always sink back down.
So I guess what I'm wondering is that, so because it looks so linear, right? Is it that actually going up gets slower and slower and slower and slower and slower and slower as you approach that line, and that line just happens to be the moment where the velocity upwards equals 0? Or is it like it's going perfectly normal up to this, and then it actually just wangs up against a...
Yeah, it's the latter. It's a really sharp boundary.
Crazy.
Yeah, which is why I find them so beautiful to look at. But sometimes in those really flat tops, you'll find little bulgy bits, which is where there's been enough kinetic energy in like a really energetic cloud that the water vapor is punched up slightly into the stratosphere, which is where the small
like a geyser.
Yeah, kind of like but like it's constantly being pushed back. Like it has to be really energetic to get above that threshold. So it just bubbles up a bit, and then it would be distributed across the stratosphere. Because the other thing, so I said that one of the reasons you put it in the stratosphere is you don't have to worry about the seeding of clouds. The other thing is that because there's basically no vertical motion, almost all motion takes place on flat surfaces. So if you put something up there, it gets distributed around the world and takes a really long time to actually fall back out. It will fall back out by going along basically like sloping surfaces towards the poles, called isentropic surfaces, that will put it back in the troposphere at certain heights. That made it sound a lot more complicated than it actually is. But like, which is the exact opposite of what I should be doing. But
just live a little side.
So this is like, wait, why is it bad to put all the shiny titanium oxide in the
yeah, because it ain't going to come down out, is it?
It will come down.
Want it to come down
so
out.
the analogy to this is
I'll be doing
the analogy to this is volcanic eruptions. So when Mount Pinatubo erupted in 1991, it was so powerful that it injected a bunch of sulfur dioxide, like sulfuric acid, in droplet form into the stratosphere because the plume from the volcano was powerful enough. But it kind of punched in and it stayed up there.
But it got higher.
And then it stayed
that's freaking awesome!
And then it stuck around for about 18 months, and it lowered the average temperature of the Earth by about, I think it was like 0.8 Kelvin, so like 0.8 Celsius, which over the course of over a whole planet is huge. Like it was a really sharp change in the temperature record, and you see it after big volcanic eruptions in the past. So there is a life cycle. There's like a half-life even for this stuff to come out of the stratosphere. The problem is, if you get the Earth used to a certain level of shininess in the stratosphere, then you have to maintain that density of stuff in the stratosphere.
By the Earth used to, do you mean?
Can I just ask, what
systems?
So what I mean is like so that you balance like the energy equation, so that the Earth is emitting as much energy into space as it is receiving from the sun, so you don't have any warming.
Someone wants to get into the Zoom meeting. I think it must be a mistake. I feel like I don't know how to respond to this. The bear has worked out how to use the keyboard. Is this what we want?
No.
Yeah. Hang on. I'm going to need to run downstairs and log me off.
No! Don't go near it! It'll hit you!
Right. Okay. Tell you what. I'm going to start a countdown, and when I reach 0, let Emily in the call, and we'll see if we can make this as smooth as possible.
Are we going to be able to hear you? Okay, brilliant.
No, we're counting in our house. We're all counting. We're all counting. Okay.
So I'll start from 20. When I hit 15, I'm going to run.
Professionals.
And try
You've
and
got to give yourself 5
5
seconds of just sitting here counting.
Well, we've got to be at the same tempo.
We got to get the tempo.
Oh, is it? Okay. Have you got
ready?
Zoom to deal with this?
I hope Twitch is ready for a spectacular success.
They've already counted us down! Milo, AJ, are you crazy?
Okay, so starting now. Ready? We're going to go 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15,
14, 13. Shamini, why aren't you counting 12?
Because we'll be out of sync.
11, 10,
audio delays.
9. Oh my god, it's terrifying. 8, 7,
You're slowing down.
6. It's going to be too early. 5, 4, 3, 2. He's not going to make it 1.
Hello.
She lives.
Did we do it?
I can see my hand if I wave it.
She's still Brendan Fraser.
Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Oh, double. Hey,
Shit, I don't have my headphones.
Oh, wow.
It's all good.
Oh.
It's all right.
Single
Right.
dates.
Hi, everyone.
We've been
How are we
talking
doing?
about. Calm down. We've been talking about.
so velvety.
Hi, Twitch chat. I've got a bit of a hoarse voice. I've been on a boat. Got that.
Darling.
We just filming with
Babes.
seahorses?
More of that.
Been doing lots of shouting over boat engines, and that's been great.
no.
I've been filming in person with real people
That is cool.
on a boat. I think I'm looking a little bit tanned as well, which is just excellent. So yeah, I'm in a
You look pretty drunk. I mean,
I haven't had a single drink, which is, as we all know, rare for me. So no, I think it's the sea air, man. You know, just chill.
Okay. Your voice is okay.
I'm glad
So
that you could
genital
make.
pain.
can you give us a couple of like bonus?
Wait. No.
Not the boners. Don't aim for the bonus.
Surely that's the protective layer, isn't it?
Whoa. We're not doing this right now.
This is a good bit for Bates to come back in on because it we've come up with some the clouds and the look. We have so far discussed how clouds might be seeded or how the dew point might be achieved to get water vapor to suddenly appear, such as in the D&D 5e level 1 spell Fog Cloud.
Hey, that's the spell I did.
Oh my god, you did that last session. Oh my god, it's so relevant to our Dungeons and Dragons game. So my question is, A, how do we think that Infinite Sky specifically, you know, which one of those methods did she use and how with the sort of tiny frozen nucleation points? And my second question is, how do you adapt for different pressure and temperature conditions to ensure that you can always cast Fog Cloud?
Purely for the sake of consistency, give me 10 seconds just to wrap up what I was saying because I didn't.
Okay.
So basically,
Sorry,
with the solar
About the bonus stuff?
with the solar radiation management, if you get this planet to a point where it's balanced and then you stop putting stuff in the stratosphere and it all rains out, suddenly you have a huge amount of warming that takes place over a really short period of time. So it's like anthropogenic.
Sorry,
global
Simon, I
warming.
missed that. Please say it again.
Okay, yeah.
So the whole thing with solar radiation management is that you are trying to limit the amount of energy that comes in from the sun to match the amount of energy that the Earth is radiating to space, because there's less radiation going out to space because we're putting CO2 in the atmosphere. So if you perfectly tweak the planet so that it's got a shield of this stuff limiting the amount of energy that comes in, if you take that shield away, which means stop putting more stuff into the atmosphere, because if you want to do this, you have to do it forever, then suddenly, over the course of perhaps a couple of years, you're going to revert from being perfectly balanced to super climate change in a way that's like, in the same way that anthropogenic climate change is super fast compared to geological timescales, that process would be super fast compared to anthropogenic climate change. So that's why we shouldn't do it, basically. Anyway.
Wow, that's actually quite scary. That's like one of the scarier things that I've heard recently.
The scariest thing is somebody could do it today. Like,
but they're gonna do it, aren't they? Like, that's the sort of mad shit that
there's a great chapter in Naomi Klein's "This Changes Everything" about all of this, and how like not philosophical, but like mindset problems that it brings, because it's almost like we'll fix the problem in post. We'll just put aerosols in the stratosphere and we'll make it fine, which means that people just keep emitting. But yeah, the scariest thing is that if Bezos just decided to do it, the technology's there. It wouldn't even be that expensive. Like, Musk could just decide to do this, and like, how do you stop them doing it? It's not like you can go around with like a basking shark in the stratosphere just sucking up.
There are international laws.
Well,
right?
yeah, but like
technically,
you could just fire rockets up there. Like, you know, you could just have like a vigilante. This is a Bond villain plot waiting to happen. Yeah. You have Musk on like one of his drone ships that then
you
just
said his name twice now. Once more, and he'll do it. So don't.
Sorry.
He'll do it.
Sorry. Blood Diamond Money could just go around on one of his ships and put like, you know, a rocket into the atmosphere, and then he comes back down to a secret base, which then moves, going from coast to coast, and he's just constantly, you know, seeding the stratosphere with this stuff, and then James Bond has to try and catch him. There you go. That's a Bond film
Pitch it.
waiting to happen.
You see if
I
that
like it.
works.
I would like to see Daniel
like it.
Craig attack Elon Musk. That I would pay to see that.
No!
I said his name again. Oh, fuck.
Ah!
You say that was the third
Doomed
time.
us. We're done.
Alternatively, just eat the rich. I feel like.
Hashtag eat the rich.
Hashtag eat the rich.
I was listening to.
Shams.
Is it the Libertines that did Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous?
Good Charlotte.
Was it Good Charlotte?
Yes, it's not the Libertines.
Oh, wow, I can't sing today. Ugh.
Oh, it's so husky, Bates. It's so good.
But yeah, like that song, basically. I realised that was way ahead of its time. Just like, we've got lots of problems. I think we can solve them. Think we should rob them. Just saying. Like, it's a
great song.
It's an Eat the Rich song before it was cool to eat the rich.
And then what's
I
the
feel
climate
like
change?
that's,
It's all
you've been
good.
waiting for a while to say that to me.
I just
got it in.
That's been brewing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been listening to
Sorry,
a lot of
Sean.
90s punk and like 2000s stuff when I've been running. Anyway, and it's just got me thinking, you know?
What were the questions that we're asking, Bates? Now that
was
she's here.
Bates / Simon, who's been looking into it, which is, well, Simon, could you go over again like how the fog cloud might work in our D&D universe, and then like what the like are there any problems with that we should?
Oh yeah, and then
Obviously
Bates has to
try and
choose,
solve.
obviously, right?
Wow.
Well, I mean, I think there's only
multiple choice.
Well, I think the two options are basically so effectively, as far as I can tell, the way to do this would that you take a local environment and you bring the air to its dew point or past its dew point so that you form a cloud. The two ways you could do that would be reducing the pressure or reducing the temperature. Now, for my money, if you reduce the temperature, it's a better bet because it's probably a bit more resilient to different environments that you're in. Maybe you couldn't do it if it was really cold, for example, or if it was a very dry environment. That's another problem. Like you couldn't do this in a desert, for example. But if you did it changing the pressure, then you would also cause a bunch of other effects which aren't described in the spell. So you cause stuff to like move towards it, like depending on how powerful the pressure, like the partial vacuum is, you could get people being sucked in towards the vortex, or it could just be like stuff just like moves near it. But Danby's asking, how much would you need to drop the pressure to get cavitation?
What's cavitation?
I don't know. I assume that was when your fillings fly out of your teeth.
Cavitation when you
Probably not that.
That's just where my mind went.
I feel like it's probably
Oh no, my teeth!
that.
I can't see anything, and all of my teeth have fallen out.
Just as a separate, if is fog, does it have to be water?
That's a good question.
Do you mean?
I think
do you mean
so.
like in like if we make fog, does it have to be water, or do you mean like theoretically could other liquids?
I mean, is it smoke? Is it just smoke if it's not water?
Well, no, because smoke is an aerosol, which is that's
Yeah.
different. That's a solid particulate, whereas fog is a liquid.
Are there any other liquids that will do that will form vapory little bits?
Well, yeah, I mean, in whiskey distilleries, you get alcohol vapor in the atmosphere.
Isn't
Just
fog an
at the
aerosolized
temperature,
liquid?
right?
Yeah, but an aerosol. Well, I suppose. Do you get aerosol liquid? Yes, you do get aerosol liquids. Sorry, but yeah, soot is a solid though, rather than a liquid. So there is a sort of a difference there, and the particle size would be different.
So Bates, is your fog cloud water or is it particles of other stuff?
Well, I mean, when I described it in game, I think I was thinking of it like kind of like a smoke bomb going off in my head, right? But
okay.
that was before I knew like the definition of fog, because I didn't know that until today, really. So I think the fact it's called fog cloud, I quite like the idea that we actually go with fog rather than because like, you know, you could probably, and the only other thing I was thinking about it is it lasts for, I believe, a minute.
Yes,
And
that
then
makes
it
sense.
disperses. Does that work?
Yeah, so you cause a cloud, but then depending on the strength of the wind in the local environment, it's probably just gonna.
And it can be dispersed by a strong breeze. So that is a thing with fog cloud. So that works.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I
So
like
it's-
the idea of it being fog.
So I'd say I think the way to do it would be that you basically have like aerosol, and it would have to be something that's very cold and would have a high heat capacity. So it takes a lot of energy out of the environment to warm up. So you'd throw a bomb that explodes and it disperses these ultra cold particles. Sorry, not ultra cold. That's like 0 Kelvin. But like, you know, pretty cold particles that then massively reduce the local temperature and cause nucleation of a cloud. Like, you know,
But aren't cold enough to do actual cold damage.
yes. So you could also, I mean, you could say that they're too small to do that. maybe. I don't know. You're the rules man.
I mean,
It can it can last up to an hour. It's concentration up to
is it an hour?
I think. Yeah.
To an hour.
You could explain that with local environment. You know, if there was a vortex keeping it in place, you know, if there was a circulation going around the cloud that would keep it.
I know this is super
but then
boring.
how's that happen?
Yeah, it's super boring, but can you not just aerosolize a load of water from a can or something? Won't that give you the same effect if it's a big can?
Wouldn't it coming out of the can change the pressure of it? Because it would be leaving the high pressure environment.
But the key thing is you're also putting it into an environment in which you haven't hit the dew point yet. Like you just be making what you do is saturate the water in the air, and then like more water would just come out as liquid. You know, it would just immediately condense out. I think you'd actually have to take the local environment and change the temperature or the pressure such that it hits its dew point. I think.
Wait, Hans, you can't reach the dew point by adding water. You have to reach the dew point by changing the temperature of the pressure.
Yeah.
Because you can't add any more water. It's the same with the sweating. If it's at 100% humidity, you can't add water and make it condense out. It just doesn't evaporate. It just stays water.
Right, so it would just be like you just be squirting a stream of water out.
You'd be weeing at a train.
Yeah, weeing out your can. You'd be like, this fog spell isn't as...
Yeah. You can't see me! You're just pissing in their general direction from a can.
Get him in the eyes!
I feel like it's useful for us because Braxigantu, or certainly where we are on it, is canonically like a little bit hot and humid and tropically. Have I got that right?
Is it?
It's cold.
Oh, it's cold. No,
I was going to say, I didn't get
Wet
that.
and cold.
Okay, it's lush.
It's like Scotland. Lush. That's why everyone is Scottish.
Like conifers.
It's like Oregon.
Okay. Oregon.
Oregon's like.
I've been there. Never.
It's like Scotland.
Like Scotland, great.
Scotland.
Which is why everyone has a Scottish accent, apart from one person.
Apart from that
who
one
you did not talk to and will never appear again. So
that
storyline done and dusted.
It's your problem, not ours.
I mean, it is, yes.
Sounds like a you problem.
He says, this is fine, he says, crying, shredding the notes.
You mean that
Yes,
one,
exactly.
Goodbye, character sheet.
that one like really significantly not Scottish guard who was really suspiciously not Scottish and very calm?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a couple of not Scottish people.
I was going to say,
They're just not interested.
They're all suspicious. I'm in. Sharmony is interested. Empress wants to go to the woods or not. You know, there's other things.
Everyone's been a bit suspicious, though.
So, so many clues and like hints and
The two guards that were by that gate, one was dwarven, and one was
an elf. Well, whatever the elf equivalent and dwarf equivalent in our.
I just I don't know. I now have my headcanon is they're
was
Gimli and Legolas.
Box, yeah.
I never thought I'd die protecting a gate with an elf. What about a friend? Fuck off.
Are we gonna die?
They were lovely.
They were so nonplussed with a zombie attack happening.
We keep calling them guards. We don't know that they were guards.
No, that's true. They were just
Ali
standing
didn't
by a
say
gate.
guards.
Did he not?
We
the
said
two people
guards.
standing by a gate.
And people by a gate.
We made assumptions.
Yeah. Oops.
Assumptions were made. That's true.
My biggest thing from that episode is the fact that I saw all of the filings inside that guy. And then you there's nothing there, and I was like, okay, there's nothing there. And
we're not good with fleshy things, all right?
Fleshy things.
Speaking of which, testicle pain. So, did you want to do some of this today?
Okay.
Professionals.
No.
Well, no, we don't have to. We've been going for over an hour now. On the stream.
You've prepped a bunch of stuff. I reckon 2 weeks' time on the next DnDebrief, we have a lot of fun chat about testicle pain. Would be my proposal.
There is some cool. I know everyone wants to know the answer of whether it could knock you unconscious. I can give you the brief answer to that.
No.
Can you give us the boxer answer?
It's complicated.
Oh. Guessed.
Boo!
I think
I just got here.
We're glad you made it, Bates. We're very glad to have you. We did. It was a little bit chaotic.
Something strange happening.
It didn't. We couldn't really keep on track without you. It turns out.
Surprised I'm the one who supposedly keeps us on track, because that doesn't seem right.
I was like, no, I've got this. I can control these people, and it was like, no, you can't. Turns out.
Did you do a nice intro for the podcast?
Yes, it was beautiful.
Yes.
Good.
Did we?
I did.
Yes, we absolutely did.
I did it all nice.
Whatever you say, podcast.
Hashtag professional.
Hashtag
professional. Just give us something, Bates. Go on, give us just a little, just the tip. Just the tip.
Just tease the testicles.
What? I haven't even got my notes open for it. What the main thing that sort of came about in my research was like the different types of going unconscious. So it comes down to that. That's all I'm going to say. We're just going to...
That's so interesting.
That's really interesting.
Because people in films are always getting knocked out, and I'm always like, don't do that. Like, I was watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. today, and she whacked him on the back of the head, and I was like, I mean, I know you're a biologist, but you could kill him.
When I was looking into it, because I was like, right, in D&D, you go unconscious before you die, right?
Yeah.
Almost always. Yeah. So unless like ridiculous amounts of damage, in which case it's fairly obvious that you'd just die. And so I was sort of looking into like states where you'd be going to that level of nearly dying, but then not necessarily not actually dying. And then obviously we said non-lethal damage, so I was like, oh, that's interesting. So there's a difference there. And
am I right in saying that the reason that you get when you're hit in the head, the reason you're knocked out is because the brain physically hits against the skull?
Can be.
That's what I understand, but I've never actually questioned
option
that.
One.
Oh, okay. Oh my god. Also,
there's quite a lot of it. It's fun. It's interesting.
Cass did
so
say
you
something.
Hit someone in the balls so hard that their brain hits against their skull.
Yeah, you create a wave in their body.
Oh.
You get so much whiplash from being hit in the balls.
Cass, your very interesting comment. There is some stuff about that, but it's like a deep dive.
What was the comment? What?
So last week, Cass said that because she's transitioning, she has found that she's immune. Previously, she would have felt empathetic pain when watching a guy getting kneed in the balls. But now, she doesn't have that.
What?
So
is this psychology? Is this physiology?
Yes.
Is that a real thing, this empathetic pain thing? I just thought it was just I don't know, I just thought you were hamming it up the whole time.
So there's stuff on the empathetic pain of people being kicked in the balls. I didn't find any specific examples, Cass, of what you were mentioning. So actually, maybe we should have a chat before next week and go into a bit more detail.
Yeah, I think we should. Week after next. So if I may...
the week after that.
Yeah, we are taking a week off. We haven't mentioned this yet, but I am away on holiday, and because I hold the keys to the stream. We can't do the stream unless I'm here. So we are missing the one in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're not having that bear back.
Excuse me?
The bear? Sorry, I don't know what you mean.
Sorry. Right, so please join us next week. That is Thursday, the 22nd of July. We'll be back with the Dungeons and Dragons and Science Adventure. We're then going to take a week off and come back on the 5th of August for the next episode of, again, Dungeons & Dragons and Science. So we're going to be saving all of the good D&Debrief content. That's what we agreed, right?
So I've got a month to do more gentle pain research.
The Science Chat will be back on the 12th of August. But generally, we do stream most Thursdays from usually 7 p.m. So you can join us live on Twitch or find the YouTube or podcast versions.
Well, so far it has been every Thursday. You make it sound a lot more sporadic than it has been.
Pretty much every Thursday, apart from specifically the 29th of July, which is the one Thursday when we're not streaming.
Of 2021. That's
of 2021.
You know what? Look on our socials. RPGeeks, D&D, pretty much everywhere. And you'll see when we're streaming. We'll be posting about it.
Before we wrap up today, though, I did want to bring up something that we talked about in the last D&D brief. That somebody linked me to this, and I can't remember who it was, unfortunately. We talked about how I dreamt in code, and other people came forward with this similar experience. And there is something that is called the Tetris effect.
We were talking about Tetris, and someone tweeted at us. That's exactly what we were talking about.
And to quote the Wikipedia here, people who have played Tetris for a prolonged amount of time can find themselves thinking about ways different shapes in the real world can fit together, such as boxes in a supermarket shelf or buildings on a street. They may see coloured images of pieces falling into place on an invisible layout on the edges of their visual fields. They may see coloured moving images when they're asleep, which is a form of hypnagogic imagery. And it's like, famously, this happened with Tetris because it was just an obsession for people. But it seems like it can happen with pretty much any repetitive visual task.
I get it with games. If I play them too much, I just see myself playing them as I'm falling asleep.
Computer games is a common one, but interesting real-world examples was Rubik's Cubes. Apparently, competitive Rubik's Cubers find themselves going through solutions.
They're insane. Those videos of kids just being like, looking at it and then just going, and it's done. And I'm like, how?
Hold up. So actually, all those examples you've just given, they're games, right? Or essentially they're puzzle solving, right? With various amounts of reward attached to them.
They need a lot of focus.
And what that would suggest is that if that's analogous to dreaming in code, that when you approach code, essentially what you're doing is you're doing puzzle solving, right?
Yeah.
Rather than natural language processing, which would make sense because they'd use the coding.
Yes.
Coding uses the part of the brain which is actually also employed for solving high-level puzzles.
And the reward system is like the dopamine hit of being correct and getting everything. Because with code, it has to be absolutely correct, or it doesn't work.
The program running, right? That would be the hit.
And so,
which presumably why it's so crippling when it doesn't run, because you're expecting the dopamine rush and you don't get it, which is the worst thing.
Oh, there's a line here which I didn't notice before. And this is a really famous example from the history of maths. Mathematicians have reported dreaming of numbers or equations, such as oh god, I can never pronounce his first name, Srinivasa Ramanujan, or Friedrich Engels, who remarked, quote, "Last week in a dream, I gave a chap my shirt buttons to differentiate, and he ran off with them." Like, people could be so into their maths, because Ramanujan famously came up with these proofs in dreams, or he had like the end result handed to him in a dream, and then he worked backwards from it. Like, so presumably it's like that was like dreaming in computer code before computer code was really a thing. Like,
there's also the guy who worked out benzene structure.
Yeah, Mr. Benzene.
And he supposedly had a dream about a snake biting its tail, and he went, "It's a circle." And oh, my voice.
Same with PCR. The guy had a dream about some sort of thistles with that down in a field, and he was walking through, and there was these thistle down everywhere, and he was like, "Wait, that's got something to do with the answer."
How does that have something to do with PCR?
Because, fuck you, Bates.
Sorry for asking an obvious question. I apologize.
There is a reason, and I have forgotten. Because you're surrounding the DNA, the DNA string with just shitloads of the nucleotides that it could use, and then they just sort of attach as they go.
Okay.
Oh, there's a sorry, I'll stop. This will be the last thing I read from this article. There's another great example here. The earliest example that related to a computer game with this effect was from a game called Space War, which looks like it's played on an old-fashioned CRT screen. It was like a circular thing. It looks a bit like Asteroids, basically. And there's a quote here that says, one of the top players in the world, basically, realized that he had this effect one night when he went home, and as he stepped off of the train, he looked up into the sky and he saw a meteor, and he instantly swiveled and grabbed for a controller to shoot down the meteor.
That's fun.
Which is like, how? I mean, especially if you're the first person to have felt that way. I mean, apparently people have previously felt it with, Rubik's Cubes or jigsaws. But to have that with a video game, that's, how crazy is that?
I think we should probably wrap up there for more science and Dungeons & Dragons, or Dungeons & Dragons of Science, as the show is in fact called.
Or Science and Dragons and Dungeons.
Dragons of Science and Dungeons.
Dundons.
D&D-ness.
D&D.
It's the Law and Order show. It's the dun-dun.
Dun-dun. Please follow us on all the socials. Please keep listening / watching. Show us your support. We're having a great time. We hope you are too. And we will see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye.